Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MIFA podcast. My name is Jonathan Hughes.
And I'm Julie Shields-Rutina.
And we have a great show for you today. Before we get started with anything, though, I said I would give a shout out. I got to give a shout out to our listeners. Asher and Malcolm, consider yourself shouted out. Thanks for listening to the show. We hope you continue to enjoy it. Now, moving on, we have on our show today MIFA presenter, high school counselor, Mike Janicki. And if you have a student athlete, you're going to want to check this out. So he is going to talk about athletics and college admissions, which is a whole world that I was really unaware of. A big one, too, a big part of this process for a lot of kids. And I didn't really know much about it. So he's going to talk all about athletics and college admissions. He's going to talk about like the different NCAA division schools, what you need to do if you're a high school athlete who wants to play college sports. It's going to touch on athletic scholarships, all that good stuff. So stick around for that. He's a great guest. But first, what are we going to discuss, Julie?
Yes, well, we're going to talk about another aspect of college admissions. The admissions process really gears up for juniors. So these days we're trying to share a lot about everything that juniors can be doing. And one of the most fun parts about the admissions process, I think, is college visits. So we'll break down some good ideas for students thinking about their college visits.
Okay, so when we think about students visiting their prospective colleges, what is the grade level are we thinking of? Are we thinking of juniors?
Well, even younger students, sophomores, freshmen, or even younger, can always make an informal visit and drop by a campus. Obviously, younger kids with their parents, but that's the nice thing about college campuses. They're usually nice places to walk around, and they have sporting events and theatrical performances, concerts, readings. So in a way, it's nice for students who are even younger to get a sense of all that at an early age. But then once a student gets to be in junior year of high school, things get a little bit more serious about the process of admissions, and their counselors start talking about standardized tests and getting recommendations from teachers. And so then that's a good time for students to think about planning a formal or some formal college visits.
Okay, so what does that mean, formal?
Yeah, well, we like to think of informal and formal. So informal is the type of visit that I was mentioning earlier, where at any time, students can just walk onto a college campus, an unannounced drop-in. Anyone can visit. Now, you can't just walk and sit in on a class, but you still can explore the campus, maybe go into the student union, go into the dining hall. Maybe it's a good way to get a good, feel for the culture, see what the students are like, what are they talking about, what do they care about. Someone's mentioned always looking at what the student newspaper, is saying, or what's up on the bulletin boards. So it's kind of hard to put it in concrete terms, but we've just heard from many students over the years that when they have had their heart set on attending a college, they visited the campus and either knew it felt right, or knew that it really wasn't the place for them. So it's just, again, a nice way to solidify that feel of a college that you think you might like to attend from what you've seen on the computer at home.
And
so
that's the informal. Okay, yeah.
So, and then a formal visit is that you arrange it ahead of time. So you go on the website of the college and you go to the admissions section of the website and you can sign up. There are usually programs for students like campus tours, or, information sessions. There are even some programs that would allow a student to stay as an overnight guest in the dorm with a current student and attend classes. But in general, the more popular one is just that there are ways a student can get on the campus, listen to an information session, and go on a tour. And then they walk around and they see all the facilities. They get to go into maybe a classroom, see class sizes, and all of the other amenities of a college. So this gives the student a chance to ask questions. Usually they're having that tour with the tour guide, and it also allows them to demonstrate their interest in attending that college.
Yeah, let's talk about demonstrated interest. You just mentioned it. Tell everyone what that is.
Yeah, well, colleges receive so many applications these days, especially because with applications like the Common App, it makes it easy for students to apply to more colleges. And so sometimes these days, a college doesn't necessarily know, just because they receive an application, how interested that student is. So sometimes they will look at things like, did the student contact us? Did the student visit the campus? Did they attend an information center? Did they do a tour? And that will let the college feel that the student is interested, and sometimes that can count in the admissions process.
Okay, so that's a good tip for everybody. If there's a college that you're interested in, you're going to apply to it. Make sure they know that you're interested. So, and a good way to do that is college tours. So what should people know about going on these college tours then?
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say is that a tour sometimes depends on the size of the college. So we have one of our colleagues, Meredith Clement, wrote a great blog on what to know about college visits, and we can link to that hopefully in the show notes. And so I'll say a couple of things that she said, because she went very recently. At smaller colleges, they will probably show you every part of their campus. You can probably see the whole thing, where bigger campuses probably highlight certain aspects because maybe it would take too long for them to take groups of people around the entire campus. But in general, the tours typically run a few hours. So you're probably going to spend a few hours there when you get to campus. Many times, as I mentioned, it's the student, maybe who works in the admissions office, a current student who works in the admissions office who is taking you on the tour. Or it could be someone who works in the admissions office, and they're going to walk with you from building to building. So one other tip that Meredith said is to wear comfortable shoes. And
I feel like that's a tip from Meredith's own life, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And then, I would say, as we mentioned, make sure that it's recorded. It's recorded that you attended the session and that you went on the tour. And that way, if it is part of the admissions process, then the college will know you were there.
Aside from wearing comfortable shoes, what can students do to actually prepare for a visit like this?
I would make sure that as a student, you spend a little time prior to the visit thinking of some questions. So, if you've looked at the college online, you might want to just think about what questions you have, and then to not be too afraid or too shy to ask them as they come up during the tour. Honestly, students who are doing these tours, they want your questions. They want to share. They want to tell about their experience as a student on that campus. And you can just learn so much from the answers to your questions.
We've heard about the benefits. We just talked about the benefits of college visits, particularly in colleges that you're really interested in. We hear from parents, I think, that they can be a lot of fun, that they had great times with their kids on trips going to college, especially if it's a long trip. But a lot of times, it's not really practical for students and families to visit every campus or a particular campus that they're interested in. So what if you can't get there? What are some things that you can do?
Well, definitely. I mean, the nice thing is that college admissions offices now, because of the pandemic and the fact that everything had to move virtual for a couple of years, many of them have virtual tours right online that students can take and see all the different parts of the campus. They usually these days also have some virtual information sessions and Zoom appointments with people who work in the admissions office or with a student. So it's really nice that there is that option so that students don't feel like they have to visit every college. But a student can call in the admissions office and ask. There might even be an alumnus in your local area that you could, either meet or email and ask questions. So that could give you some additional information too. So call the admissions office, go on the admissions website, and you can find all of the different ways to connect.
Is there anything else we can let folks know about?
Well, I think one thing we didn't say is that it is great if you can visit a campus while school is in session. I know you can't always do that. Sometimes vacations in the summertime is a good time to visit, and that's fine. That's good. And the admissions offices are set up to receive you then as well. But if you can visit when the classes are in session, then you get to see more students on the campus, and you can sometimes get a better feel, as well as maybe even see a class in session.
Thanks, Julie. Now it's time to go to the MIFA mailbag. And these are questions that have come into us over the past weeks and have been answered by our college planning team. So remember, if you have any questions, you can email us at collegeplanning@mifa.org. You can call us at 800-449-MIFA. And you can reach us over social media on Facebook, that's MIFA MA, on Twitter, that's at MIFA Tweets, and on Instagram, it's MIFA_MA. Our question today comes to us from Afton, who writes, I filed the FAFSA for my son on the 9th, and the next day I saw a post from MIFA about the retirement savings not needing to be included. I think I messed up because I included the assets in my Roth IRA in the questions about current investments. Julie, what should Afton do?
Yes. Well, it is possible to go in and make a correction on the FAFSA. So you can just log into your application and then choose that you want to make a correction, not start a new FAFSA. And you can go in and make that change and then resubmit. And that change will get to your colleges within, a day or so. So you can make that correction.
So that is a question. I know some questions you can't correct after you've filed them, right? This one you can. What if you did answer a question wrong that you couldn't correct? What would you do then?
Then you would send an email, I think, to all of the colleges that you've applied to just say, I made this error on my FAFSA and I'd like to correct it, and send that information directly to the colleges. You could send it to all of the colleges that you've applied to, or if you're narrowing it down and getting close to making a decision, you could just send it to that college. But, financial aid administrators welcome any additional information that you have for them. So you should never feel like all is lost. You can always contact the financial aid office.
See, I positioned you into that. I was afraid we were going to go through an episode without us getting in contact the financial aid office with any questions.
As soon as I heard that question coming, I realized we were there again, John.
Oh, well, all right. Thanks, Julie. One more time, if you have questions, you can email us at collegeplanning@mifa.org. You can call us at 800-449-MIFA. Our Facebook is MIFA MA, Twitter at MIFA Tweets, and Instagram MIFA_MA. So we have a bench of college guidance experts waiting to answer your question. Now let's go to my talk on athletics and admissions with Mike Janicki. Dr. Mike Janicki holds a doctorate in education from Northeastern University. He's currently a school counselor at Old Rochester Regional High School and has spent time as a MIFA presenter. He's held director positions at the high school level in both guidance and admissions, as well as a position that I will quiz him on in just a minute with the NFL. All of these elements blend perfectly, of course, with what we're going to talk about today, which is Dr. Janicki's presentation for MIFA, Athletics and College Admissions. So Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. This is great to be here.
I said I was going to quiz you on that NFL position. I was looking over your resume, so to speak, for that intro. What's that?
So for the NFL, for every major sport league, there's a stat booth, and I just simply work in the stat booth. So I'm assigned to Gillette Stadium for all the home Patriot games, and there's a team of us, and pretty much anything that you can imagine that's counted is counted. So the AP stats teacher always enjoys Monday when I bring to school the book of the final stats from every game. But it's amazing.
You've been doing that for a while too, so it must be something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been interested in athletics. It's just been a part of who I've been growing up my entire life. So anything that I can do to keep my feet wet, whether it's college athletics, high school athletics. I coached the cross country team here at the junior high. Have coached softball at the college level. Just dabbled a little bit. Athletic academic advisor for student athletes at PC for a little bit. So it's always been something I've been drawn to, and now even with my own kids who sports management majors, both Division II club athletes at Division I, just my own kids are involved, so it's kind of fun stuff to do.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because, so as I was saying to you earlier, I love this presentation. I love this topic. We're going to post a link to the presentation, the recorded presentation in the notes to the show, so that if people want to hear more of what you have to say, because we're going to go over it, but not certainly in the detail that you do in the presentation. But it's something that I haven't really considered too much of. A lot of kids have to deal with these questions, a huge part of this process.
Right.
And you mentioned just a minute ago, Division I, Division II. I know the NCAA, of course. I think everybody has heard of the NCAA. So could you introduce those leagues and tell me a little bit about them?
So there are three major governing bodies, NCAA being the one that everyone's familiar with, Big Ten football, SEC football, March Madness, that's all NCAA governing body. And then there's also the NCIA, which is the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, and the National Junior College Athletic Association. Obviously the largest one with hundreds, almost 1,000 member schools, is the NCAA. More popular, the NAIA is a little bit more popular. The schools are more prevalent geographically around in the Great Lakes region, Midwest. There, having been from Massachusetts, there's not a whole lot of student athletes, but there are. I'm aware of a few students that I personally know that have gone out west for soccer, women's soccer, cross country. So it's certainly worth mentioning, geographically here in Massachusetts. And then the National Junior College Athletic Association is kind of the 2-year schools of community colleges that certainly is a stepping stone, both academically and athletically, for many students who have aspirations to go on to play at a 4-year school.
Sticking with the NCAA, and as you said, the sort of largest and most well-known. You mentioned Division I, Division II. Take me through the different divisions and what that means.
Division I, II, and III really is how the university is appropriating effort towards their, and maybe that's not the right word, but appropriating actions towards their athletics department, be it money, be it facilities. We all know, again, harping back to March Madness and bowl system, football bowl system, those are clearly your larger athletic facilities and programs. And then Division II is going to be a little bit more regional in competition. Division I conferences, will be almost virtually coast to coast in some cases. The Big Ten really does stretch from coast to coast. Big East is about to stretch from coast to coast. But so your Division II will be certainly a little bit more regional. And Division III is going to be a smaller effort economically towards some of the facilities, just the effort and time involved. But also one thing to get for students to be thinking about is don't get hung up on that Division One is the most prominent. There are Division Two schools with facilities that are substantial. I mean, just absolutely beautiful. Where my son is now, they're winning national titles. Their student athletes are getting drafted into, Major League Baseball, just substantial facilities and the top quality athletes at the Division II level, where they would certainly be very competitive and a stronger competition than some Division I schools. So don't get caught up on the prominence of 1, 2, or 3. Really, you're looking for where you're going to be the best student athlete that you can be.
Another thing that you talked about that I thought was, again, such a big thing that I hadn't even thought of is really what the experience of being a Division I athlete is like for these kids. And can you go through that a little bit?
Think of it as a full-time job. It really, and year round. The hours, it's not, what we see on TV is just the 2-hour game that we're watching. But these are student athletes that, especially at the Division I level, it really is a full-time job, between practice and film sessions and meetings, in season, out of season. It is substantial. Division II, a little bit less, a little bit more than a part-time job, but not quite the hours that Division I would be expecting. And again, don't forget, there are some powerhouse Division II programs that are going to be expecting a lot. And Division III is a little bit closer to the high school experience, so to speak. Higher demand than what you experience in high school. But there's a little bit more of a difference between in season and out of season expectations that they would have from Division I or II student athletes.
So you mentioned student athletes, and this is the point that you make over and over again in your presentation. And I think it fits in well here with as far as the expectations are concerned. Can you talk about student athletes? And you said that the emphasis is on student athletes.
Yeah, it's always a student athlete. Every coach, every athletic director, everybody involved in this realm. It's a student athlete for a very good reason. You are a student first. You're there, you're at a college, you're at a university for one reason only, and that is to earn your degree. You're not even eligible unless you make the grades in high school. You're no good to your team, you're no good to your coach if you're not making the grade in class. That is first and foremost the absolute expectation. Athletic departments will have academic advisors. They will have mandatory study hall, all for the specific purpose that you are a student first.
When I hear about student athletes, and when I get questions about student athletes at MEFA, it's to do with scholarships, right? And so students expecting athletic scholarships rather. Can you, just to give people an idea who maybe, they're high school athletes or have high school athletes and are thinking about scholarships, how prevalent are athletic scholarships?
Few and far between. Only about 2% of high school student athletes will receive an athletic scholarship. And even then, it's not even across the board in every sport. It's really just focused on most of your full rides. When we talk scholarships, we have this mind of a full ride scholarship. It's mostly going to be basketball and football. Of all the sports, those are primarily where all the scholarship money goes. Athletic scholarships are really only available at the Division I and II level. Division III student athletes will not be able to be offered an athletic scholarship, but they may be some merit scholarship money for other purposes, that they might be able to work with you a little bit, or you might be able to work with them a little bit. And also not every Division I school offers athletic scholarships.
Hmm.
Not Division two, Division two. Just because the Division 1 and 2 can, doesn't mean they do. The Ivy League is, there are no athletic scholarships. And that's the practice. That's the way the school operates.
Thinking about this from the perspective of a student or parents with an athlete in high school, they want to play in college, whatever it is that they play, they're interested in these things. When should they start doing what they need to do, and what is it that they need to start doing?
Right. So this is always a tricky point, because first thing you have to do is really have a recognition of how talented the student really is. There are, I've been on a lot of sidelines with parents talking and bragging of, what the plans are, what the thoughts are, not the plans, what the thoughts are, what the hopes are. And you have to have an honest conversation with yourself, with your coach, with reality of how talented somebody really is. If you are substantially talented, if your talent level is rising to that level of really being strongly recruited, the process is going to start pretty early, and getting earlier and earlier. You may, if you're really that good, you may have people reaching out to you as early as 7th, 8th grade even.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting, some of that. But the first thing you'll need to do, one, again, going back to the student piece, is make the grade. The phrase really is 2.3 or take a knee. You need to have a minimum GPA of a 2.3 to be academically eligible to play at the Division 1 level. And then to start getting on coaches list to be able to be contacted, is you'll need to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And you can do that as early as freshman or sophomore year. So the Eligibility Center is going to have 3 different kind of levels. One will be just registration and just academic certification. And then the other 2 will be a little bit more involved, certifying amateurism. As soon as you register, you'll be given an NCAA ID number. And then if coaches reach out to you, or if you're reaching out to coaches, you'll want to share that ID number so that coaches can add you to their interest list. And they'll use that as a means to, when you register, your high school will receive a request to upload your transcript so they can check your academics. But the coach, the university, will use that ID number to add you to their list, to confirm eligibility, kind of the nuts and bolts housekeeping behind the scenes of keeping track of who's talking to whom and when.
So a student gets to high school, they want to be looked at by coaches, or be able to be contacted, or to contact coaches.
Yeah.
How do they find that eligibility, that registration center?
Yeah, just Google Eligibility Center, NCAA eligibility, and it'll ask you to create create an account. That first level, there's no charge for that first level. The second level is mostly for international students, which third level will be more for Division 1, 2 caliber athletes.
And so, since we talk about coaches, right? So coaches can contact people can contact coaches. Can you talk about their role in this process?
Again, depending on your sport, depending on the division of where you're, where you're looking, there will be established calendars of throughout the year of contact periods, no contact periods, times of the year when you can have an official visit, when they're not allowed, all of which is governed. Again, we're talking NCAA here, all of which can be found if you do a Google search of NCAA contact calendars. It will lay out each sport's calendar and when coaches can contact you. And a contact really is anytime a coach says more than hello to you. Anything more than hello is considered a contact. An official visit is any time that the school pays for transportation or visit costs for you. An unofficial visit is when it's on your dime, when you're visiting campus on your own expense. An evaluation period is any time that a coach is observing you practice or play. So as far as being in touch with coaches or coaches being in touch with you, a lot of in most cases, people are participating in these showcases or tournaments. Student athletes have huddle accounts where they're uploading film, game film, practice film. Coaches traveling a country to watch recruits is difficult. So those online forums can be helpful, and those tournaments and showcases can be helpful where a coach can watch hundreds of people on various fields all around, rather than looking for one diamond in the rough kind of thing.
Is it more common for contact to be initiated by coaches or by students?
It really comes down to how good you really are. If you are a standout athlete, and I mean, we're talking the standout athlete, Sports Illustrated used to have that thing, Face in the Crowd, where people are getting noticed. And that top caliber student athlete will be found. Coaches will reach out to them. If you are, if you're not rising to that level, AAU showcases, club teams will often participate in tournaments that coaches will attend, and they'll see they're watching the game, they'll see the talent, they'll do their evaluation, and coaches will reach out to because they'll have a roster of all the participants, and they'll reach out to the students that they're interested in speaking with more often. If you are a situation, this is in my own family, my own son was, interested in playing at the Division II level, wasn't being actively recruited, but he took the initiative, which really does carry a lot of weight. It shows the coach responsibilities, maturity, ownership. But if you're interested in a specific school, you want to attend a specific school, feel free to reach out to the coach. Nothing too elaborate, name, height, weight, sport, position played, names, contacts of your high school club coaches, and GPA, certainly share with that. If you have already registered with the NCAA, share your ID number, and keep your fingers crossed.
What are the type of things that student athletes have to be mindful of in order to maintain their eligibility? And then, is there what resource can they consult with help for this?
So different schools will have different systems in place. They will pretty much all have, for the most part, academic advisors for student athletes, tutoring centers, study halls, of one form or system or another, available for student athletes, because especially at some of those larger schools, Division I schools, you're also dealing with travel, in some cases, long distance travel. The expectation is that you maintain grades on campus. You're no good. I think I said this earlier. You're no good to your coach. You're no good to your teammates if you're not eligible to play because you didn't make the grades.
Now, I want to end really by talking about some advice for the students, for the student athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about fit
Yeah.
in your presentation. And that's something that we talk about in general, but I think it takes on a specific or a special sort of consideration when we're talking about student athletes with all of their responsibilities. So what would you advise students when they're sort of looking around and making a gut check?
Right. I totally agree. We're always talking about fit for any student when they're looking at school, at college. But fit in this sense for the student athlete really does take on a next level level of importance, because you're talking about you're not just going to a university, but you're joining a team, and what is the fit there? Are you going to be comfortable working with that coach? What is the prospect of making, not just making the team, but actually playing in competition? If you're a point guard coming in as a freshman, and there's already 3 freshman point guards, 2 sophomore point guards, they're stacked at the point guard position. What is your expectation of seeing the court anytime soon? What is the expectation out of season? Oftentimes, the coaches will put on camps, youth camps, which is probably where you got seen in the first place, could be. But what is your expectation there? What major are you interested in? If somebody is interested in, nursing, engineering, architecture, something that's a really substantial, academically demanding major, are you going to be able to balance the academics as well as, the athletic season? Depending on this, your season, we're coming up on the holiday break. If you're playing basketball, are you going to be able to even come home during break? What's your academic course load during the academic year, and are you going to have to come back over the summer to take additional classes to stay caught up? So all of that really plays into the concept of fit. And are you going to be comfortable being a student athlete in that program on that campus? And even, are you going to be comfortable being a student athlete? Maybe you just want to be a student. Being a student athlete really it's a valuable experience. It really is. It demonstrates a high level of responsibility, of maturity, of expectation that you have of yourself, of your team. And it can play a big role in after college experiences, but you have to be comfortable going into it, know what's expected of you.
This is, as I said, a whole side of things that I never really thought of before. Whenever I would think of college athletes or student athletes, or certainly up at the level where they're getting scholarships, I would think of them primarily in terms of their talent or their luck, and you know, they're so lucky to be so talented. But
Right.
really, you know, I wasn't thinking about the workload and you know the full-time job aspect of it and the sacrifices that that they would have to make.
It's kind of next level expectation, but when you reach the college level, for the coach, that's their job, is to be the coach. The expectations placed on a college coach is different. And so their expectations on their student athletes is substantial as well. So there's a lot more involved than what their experience, what student athletes are experiencing before they get to college. So it's a fun and exciting and rewarding time, but just kind of know what you're getting into, and look forward to it.
Well, Mike, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you on, and hopefully we can do this again.
You bet. No, this was good. This is fun. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, that about wraps it up. I want to thank Mike Janicki once again for teaching us all about athletics and admissions. And folks, if you liked what you heard today and you want to know more about planning, saving, and paying for college and career readiness, you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. And please remember to review us. It helps us to keep doing what we're doing and getting this show out to folks like you. Julie, thank you again. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to thank Sean Connolly, our producer, and AJ Yee for his assistance in posting the show. Once again, my name is Jonathan Hughes, and this has been the MIFA Podcast. Thanks.